Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we will discuss about 10 horrifying Nazi experiments. During World War II, the Nazis conducted a series of horrifying experiments on human subjects in their quest for scientific knowledge and military advancement. These experiments, often conducted without the subject's consent and resulting in unimaginable suffering, have left a dark stain on history. In this video, we will delve into 10 unbelievable accounts of horrifying Nazi experiments that showcase the depths of human cruelty and the atrocities committed in the name of science and war. Freezing experiments for hypothermia research. In a chilling series of tests, Nazi scientists sought to unlock the mysteries of surviving extreme cold by subjecting prisoners to brutal cold exposure experiments. Victims were either plunged into icy water or stripped and left exposed to the frigid outdoor air, enduring temperatures that would plummet below freezing. The aim was to mimic conditions soldiers might face on the Eastern Front. Tragically, these experiments often resulted in terrible frostbite, irreversible organ damage, or death. The data collected was intended to guide the development of survival and revival techniques for hypothermia, but the cost in human suffering and lives was immeasurable, leaving a legacy of cruelty under the guise of scientific inquiry. High-altitude experiments for aviation survival. To enhance the survival of Luftwaffe pilots forced to eject at high altitudes, Nazi researchers carry out merciless high-altitude experiments on inmates. Subjects were placed inside depressurizing chambers to simulate the conditions thousands of feet above the ground, where the body could experience catastrophic decompression sickness, also known as the bends. Many suffered from agonizing physical effects, including embolisms, hemorrhages, and sheer terror as their bodies swelled and contorted from the lack of atmospheric pressure, often leading to a gruesome death. The supposed goal was to develop emergency procedures and equipment to protect pilots, but these experiments crossed the bounds of humanity, inflicting undue suffering for speculative gains. Infectious disease testing for biological warfare. In an appalling pursuit of biological warfare capabilities, the Nazis turned prisoners into unwilling test subjects by exposing them to a variety of deadly diseases. These experiments aimed to observe the progression and effects of typhus, tuberculosis, cholera, and other infectious agents under controlled conditions. Subjects endured severe illness, often without any form of medical treatment, to allow researchers to track the natural course of these diseases. The hope was to harness these pathogens as weapons against enemy forces, disregarding the excruciating suffering and high mortality rates among the victims. This barbaric approach to medical research not only violated ethical standards but also demonstrated a profound disrespect for human life, treating individuals as mere tools for the Nazis' war efforts. Sterilization experiments to advance racial purity goals. The Nazi regime, obsessed with their ideologies of racial purity, engaged in brutal sterilization experiments targeting populations they deemed undesirable. These inhumane studies involved both men and women who were subjected to invasive procedures without the use of anesthesia, causing intense agony and leading to irreversible infertility. The experiments aimed at developing quick and efficient sterilization techniques that could be applied en masse. Victims, often chosen based on their ethnicity or physical characteristics, were left with lasting physical and emotional scars. This appalling endeavor reflects the extent to which the Nazis were willing to manipulate science to fulfill their perverse racial theories, disregarding the basic tenets of human dignity and rights. Experiments on twins to uncover genetic secrets. The grotesque fascination with twins led to one of the most morally repugnant chapters of Nazi experimentation. Identical and fraternal twins were forcibly taken from their families and subjected to a horrifying array of tests. The experiments ranged from exposure to infectious diseases to see if both twins would react the same way, to surgical mutilation under the guise of investigating the origins of congenital defects. The scientists, operating under a twisted notion of research, injected dyes into the eyes of twins to see if their eye color could be altered, reflecting the regime's obsession with Aryan features. Many of these children suffered indescribable pain, permanent disability, or were killed during or after the procedure. These atrocious acts were justified by the perpetrators as essential to unlocking the secrets of genetics and heredity, yet they stand as a stark testament to the ethical abyss into which Nazi scientific inquiry had plunged. Bone, muscle, and nerve regeneration and repair experiments. In their relentless pursuit to conquer the battlefield, Nazi doctors embarked on gruesome experiments focusing on the regeneration and repair of bone, muscle, and nerve tissue. Prisoners, many of whom were soldiers from opposing forces or deemed unfit by the regime, were subjected to barbaric procedures that included the deliberate fracturing of bones, severing of muscles, and damaging of nerves. These acts of brutality were followed by various invasive attempts to stimulate tissue repair involving the application of harmful chemicals, exposure to extreme radiation, and surgical interventions lacking any form of compassion or anesthesia. The suffering inflicted upon the subjects was immense, often leading to permanent disability, chronic pain, or death. These experiments were conducted under the guise of advancing medical knowledge and improving the recovery outcomes of injured German soldiers. However, they were devoid of any ethical consideration, highlighting a dark period of medical history where the quest for scientific advancement was pursued without regard to human life or dignity. Poison bullet experiments for assassination techniques. In their pursuit of clandestine warfare methods, the Nazis devised a series of experiments involving poison bullets, envisioning a new form of silent but deadly assassination technique. Unfortunate prisoners became the targets of these sinister trials, where bullets laced with lethal toxins were used to assess the effectiveness and lethality of such ammunition. The immediate and agonizing symptoms following impact, ranging from intense pain and rapid paralysis to eventual death, were meticulously recorded. These experiments not only demonstrated a horrifying disregard for human life, but also sought to refine the tools of espionage and murder. The victims, subjected to this cruel fate, endured a level of suffering that was both unnecessary and inhumane, serving as a grim reminder of the lengths to which the regime would go to develop advanced methods of assassination. Seawater desalination experiments for survival at sea. To address challenges of survival at sea, the Nazis undertook brutal experiments focusing on the feasibility of desalinating seawater to make it potable. Prisoners were coerced into consuming only seawater, which led to horrific outcomes, including severe dehydration, madness, and often death. The ostensible aim was to discover methods to save stranded sailors by converting undrinkable seawater into a life-sustaining resource. However, the approach lacked any semblance of humanitarian concern. Instead of seeking viable survival techniques, these experiments subjected human beings to unbearable suffering, highlighting the regime's indifference to the torment inflicted in the name of research. The dire consequences of these actions, intended to observe the physical and mental degradation caused by extreme dehydration, underscore the callousness with which the Nazis treated human life as expendable in their pursuit of military advantage. Phosgene gas experiments for chemical warfare development. Exploring the lethal boundaries of chemical warfare, the Nazis engaged in heinous experiments with phosgene gas, a notorious chemical weapon characterized by its deadly efficiency. Unsuspecting prisoners were the subjects of these experiments, forced to inhale the toxic substance in confined spaces designed to mimic gas chamber conditions. The objective was clear: to gauge the effectiveness of phosgene gas as a tool of war by observing its acute impact on human physiology. Victims experienced intense respiratory distress as the gas attacked their lungs, leading to agonizing symptoms of suffocation. These observations were meticulously documented, with the suffering of the victims viewed as necessary collateral in the advancement of chemical warfare technologies. The disregard for human life was stark, as these experiments sought to optimize the destructive capabilities of chemical weapons, prioritizing military innovation over ethical standards and human compassion. Experiments with mustard gas for treatment of chemical burns. In an ironic and gruesome series of tests, Nazi researchers subjected individuals to mustard gas, notorious for its horrific effects on the human body, causing severe burns, blisters, and sometimes blindness. The purpose behind these inhumane experiments was to investigate potential treatments for the wounds caused by this very agent. Victims, often prisoners of war or those considered expendable by the regime, were deliberately exposed to the gas, suffering intense agony as researchers documented the progression of their injuries and attempted various interventions to mitigate the damage. These efforts included the application of ointments and other substances to treat the chemical burns. However, the primary objective seemed less about alleviating suffering than about understanding how to better treat German soldiers injured by similar agents. The pain and disfigurement endured by the subjects were profound, illustrating a brutal paradox where the means of injury were also the focus of cure, all conducted within a framework that utterly disregarded the principles of medical ethics and humanity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing content. Let us know in the comments which mystery fascinated you the most and what other mysteries you'd like us to explore. Thanks for watching.